So let's talk about unemployment insurance, okay? So if your income decreased or is affected by COVID-19, the coronavirus pandemic, then you may be eligible up to 39 weeks of weekly payments. The federal government is going to provide, according to the stimulus package and the CARES Act, 13 weeks of $600 per week payments. So that's $600 per week for 13 weeks for those who qualify for unemployment insurance, right? But at the state level, this is gonna vary according to your income. Now, in New York, where I'm at, the highest rate that you can get paid on a weekly basis is $504. But the national average for unemployment is about $385. So go to your state's website and figure out what you will actually qualify for. But we'll talk about qualifications in just a second, right? So just to break this down a little bit further, what's gonna happen is right now for the first 13 weeks, you're gonna get $600 from the federal government. And then your state benefit is going to give you whatever you qualify for 26 weeks, unless you get a job somehow in between that time. After that 26 weeks, you can now go back to your state and ask for an extension for an additional 13 weeks, bringing that a total of state benefits for 39 weeks. So for the first 13 weeks, if you're like in New York City like me, and let's say you max out and make that and you qualify for that $504, then what's gonna happen is that you're going to get for the first 13 weeks $1,104, $600 from the government and $504 from New York State, for example. Who qualifies? Anyone who is laid off fully or partially. So someone who has been working and has been laid off fully or partially, ill, or they had to care for someone else with coronavirus, or they lost their job because of coronavirus. You know, so these are people, like a lot of people that we know, especially out here in New York, that we've seen affected by this are people who are in hospitality. So a lot of these people have actually lost their jobs because we're quarantined, we can't go out, and so no one's coming for them to serve them. If you've been laid off fully or partially, you've become ill or had to take care of someone, or you just, you know, lost your job. If you are self-employed, so this goes for freelancers, gig workers like Uber and maybe Postmates, things like that, or what was that company? TaskRabbit, right? People, you can't go in their house anymore, so you can't work. Independent contractor, so if you're contracted out by a company, and let's say you're a web designer and you're contracted out by companies to do web design, but everyone's like, oh, hold up, freeze, we're canceling that right now. So you're no longer working, you're losing business, right? Consultants, anyone who files a 1099 or a Schedule C, who makes their own money, files itemized deductions. Sometimes you can also file the standard as well. But if you're responsible for your income coming in and you don't work for someone else specifically, that would be classified as self-employed, like a sole proprietor, and you would qualify. If you get 1099 income, like you do work for someone and they pay you according to 1099, you would qualify. Telecommuters now, people who are working from home, yeah, you're probably not gonna qualify because you're working from home. Telecommuter, by the way, is the outdated version that the government uses for people who, you know, are home-based or work from home, you know, WFH. And if you're currently receiving some type of benefit that's linked to the stimulus packages, like paid leave, which I'll talk about in another video, then you're probably not going to qualify for this because you're still getting income from an employer or some type of income is coming in. So how do you apply? Go to your state's Department of Labor website to find out how your state is handling the claims. Every state handles claims and has a different process of processing unemployment insurance claims, because that's what it's called, just in case you get there and it says unemployment insurance and you're like, I don't have unemployment insurance. Actually, this is what it is, unemployment insurance. So in order to file a claim, because that's exactly what you do, you need to go to your state's Department of Labor site and follow the directions and figure out how to apply there. Some other things, like I said, every state has their own requirements and qualifications, and also going to ask you for their own different types of documentation in order for you to qualify. So you need to go to your state's website and ask those questions and figure out what you need to gather that information. One tip I will give you is that you need to have like your identification available, because most states are going to be asking you for that. Your identification, your last employer, or your former employer's EIN number, which is their employer identification number, which can be found on like your W-2. It can also be found on the 1099 form that they give you. So usually when you apply for unemployment, there are two things that are always in place. One, you have to be actively looking for employment or registered with an employment agency. That is one of the requirements to receive unemployment insurance claims. Well, because of the CARES Act and because of this pandemic, that has been waived. You don't have to be registered with an agency. You don't have to actively be looking for employment at this time. Thing number two is usually there's a 1 week waiting period that you have to wait before you can start to receive benefits. So you just kind of like forego this week. It's just like 1 week you don't get paid and that's it. You just gotta wait a week and then they give you money the following week. Well, the government, according to this stimulus pack and the CARES Act, the government is going to pick up the tab on the 1 week waiting period. They're like, nope, just start paying people right away. So you can forego that 1 week wait, okay? Now, just because they're saying you can forego this 1 week wait doesn't mean that you're not going to be waiting. Remember, like, this is uncharted and unprecedented times right now. So they're not ready to handle the influx and the millions of people that are applying for unemployment. So have a little patience. Some states like New York, you're gonna have to have a little bit more patience than others, but it's gonna take some time. So these rules or these general guidelines that they tell you that usually are in place for any other time probably aren't gonna apply for now. So have a little patience. That's it for unemployment insurance benefits. I'll see you on the next video.